Welcome to the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. My name is Jared Mello, and today I'm going to talk about the only 5 things you really need to know about the Manosphere, in my opinion. But before I get into that, please stay tuned to the end of this, where I discuss the origins of the expression, beat around the bush. It's actually pretty interesting. Now, I'm going to do one of those at the beginning of every one of the videos that I do that are just me. But today, like I said, we're going to talk about the only 5 things you really need to know about the Manosphere. So number 1, women love differently than men. And when I first got introduced to Manosphere type content, this is one that really stood out to me, because once I saw this, and I saw it with my own eyes everywhere I looked, it made a lot of sense. Now, there's a big difference between when a woman genuinely desires you versus when she settles for you. You don't want to be the guy that she settles for. And part of seeing how women love differently is observing how when a woman's younger, 18 to 24, she doesn't get with certain kind of guys. She gets with what they would call the Chads, the tall, dark, handsome, bad boy type guys. Guys that she has genuine desire for. But as she gets older, mid-20s, late 20s, early 30s, her choices in men, you may notice, changes. And this is when maybe she hasn't been able to find a partner. Well, at this point, she might settle, in some cases, for a guy that didn't meet all of her requirements before, but is someone she can settle down with and have kids with. Now, this might not be the guy that gives her all the tingles, etc., but it is different. Now, when I say a man loves differently than a woman, what do I mean? I mean, men are more simple when it comes to their love. If a woman is attractive and is overall pleasant and easy to get along with, that's really all a lot of men want. And they're going to not have as many exceptions to that as women will. But women are a little different with it, right? Women will love a guy for him, but she also has to see that he has some other potential and can provide some things, especially when she's older. Now, when she's younger, it might not be this way. She might just get with the guy who's hot. The guy, because she wants to get with him, she will. But when she gets older, it's not just that. She wants to get with the guy that will have something going for him and will provide her something. Maybe it's a lifestyle, or maybe it's just the image of how he will look next to her, but that's how it is. And I can hear women saying right now, oh, I would unconditionally love a man. I put up with all sorts of BS from all sorts of boyfriends. But here's the thing. A lot of those relationships, that was a trauma bond. You can't compare a trauma bond with real love. They are not the same thing. A trauma bond is when usually a narcissistic person is with more of a codependent person and their traumas splice together. And a lot of people confuse that intensity for love. And this is how a lot of men, mind you, find the Manosphere. They got involved with some sort of narcissistic woman or a borderline woman, and she cheated on them, broke their hearts or whatever, put them through hell, and then they find the Manosphere. But what you really need to know is women, especially when they're older, late 20s, early 30s, it's going to be a little different. It's more of a transactional thing at that point, right? And she's not going to be head over heels as often at that age either. It's going to be more of like a business arrangement a lot of times. It's going to be more intellectual. Now, in a perfect world, you get a little bit of heart and intellectual. Now, as a man, you can't let one overpower the other. You don't want to be blinded by either one of them. But ideally, you have a little bit of each. But just know, women are going to love a little differently than men, and what they do at certain times of their life is going to change. In their early 20s, many of them are just having fun because a lot of them are just focused on their careers and they want to get into a certain place with their careers before they even think about getting into a serious relationship. And that's just what I see a lot of. Now, is it always true? Not always. Nothing's going to be always true. There's going to be nuance, but just know women generally love differently than men. You want to be the guy that she genuinely desires, not someone that she's intellectually going with because you can provide something for her, or someone that she's settling for. That's not the guy you want to be. So number 2, the second thing you got to watch out for is there is no soulmate. There is no the one. And this is one that a lot of people who were brought up on Disney, they believe in the soulmate myth. They believe that there's just someone out there just for them that's going to be their missing puzzle piece. But here's the problem about that. It doesn't serve us in any way, especially as a man, to believe in a soulmate. What does it benefit you to believe in a soulmate? I can't think of a thing, because all it does is it hurts your chances, really. Because when you think there's a soulmate, you might think, oh, someone will just accept me exactly as I am. Someone will just come there and be able to handle whatever I throw at them. But here's the problem with that. That statement is more true for women than it is for men. There will be very few women that will just accept you totally as you are. And guess what? That's fine. That's just reality. And rather than whine and complain about what reality you wish reality was, we got to work with reality. So when we don't believe in a soulmate, we believe that, hey, it's up to us to take care of our side of the street, take personal responsibility, and become the best version of ourselves we can. That's within our control to do. And then when we see it that, hey, when we're the best version of ourselves we can be, we are most likely to attract a better kind of person. So rather than believe in the soulmate, I think believing in that, personal responsibility, taking care of ourselves, continually working to try to be the best version of ourselves, that's a much better way to look at it. Now, even women, though, they'll often use the soulmate myth to their detriment too, and they'll think, oh, the right guy will be able to handle me at my worst and my most chaotic. But guess what? If they are the common denominator in all of their relationships and they keep on doing the same wild things because of trauma or whatever, hey, that's not too good for them either. Now, unfortunately for some guys who don't know any better will try to take on that challenge and say, oh, she has all this drama and trauma and chaoticness, etc., cluster B traits. I'll be the guy that saves her. Do not be that guy, gentlemen. Do not involve yourself in someone that hasn't done some work on themselves and has some self-awareness. That stuff's really key. So believing in the soulmate myth does not help men or women, for that matter. Believe in taking care of yourself and trying to be the best version of yourself. That's a much better way to look at it. Number 3, the third thing to keep an eye out for is that women cheat a lot more than the average guy would expect. Now, when you've been around the block for a little bit, you see it. You see it. Personally, I've seen it. Other guys who are good with women have mentioned it. Celebrities, people with high status, they've mentioned it too. But what happens is there are going to be a percentage of women, they'll be married, they'll be in a committed relationship, but they'll still get with a guy if they really want to. Now again, this is not all women, but I do believe it's a bigger percentage of women than a lot of people would expect, especially guys who are a little more naive, guys who are blue-pilled. They might not get it. They don't understand that, yeah, you thought women were just sugar and spice and everything nice, but guess what? There's a lot of them that have a dark side. And there's more women than you would think that are going to be open to cheating than you ever would have imagined. And again, if you're brought up on Disney, you might expect the women to be like the Disney princesses. But guess what? Not many women are like that. And the other problem with the Disney movies is you might think you want to be like the Disney prince because the women fall in love with the Disney prince, but that's not usually how it works either. How it works is they fall in love with somebody else, not the guy who acts like the Disney prince or the movie goofball. So both looking at it from both angles does not really help. You're not going to find too many women like the Disney princess, and the guy who acts like the dude in the Disney movie, that's usually not going to be the kind of guy that succeeds either. Especially the rom-coms, the guy who's a dork and a nerd and is insecure. That guy usually does not get the woman. Remember that. And speaking of that part of it too, when the woman gets a little older, there's going to be guys that maybe just because of their height or because of how they look, they fit her basic mold of what she's looking for. And it's not really anything this guy did per se. She just fits the mold of a person she'd be okay settling with. I see it. You can just tell in some of these cases what's going on, but that does happen too. Number 4. The fourth thing you got to watch out for is that women are not going to be attracted to a guy that is too invested in needing her approval. This is another huge eye-opener. It's just one of the things you see that the guys in the rom-com movies get wrong, the Disney princes get wrong, is that when a woman sees that a guy is just too head over heels for her and is needing her approval to be okay with himself, nothing is more unattractive than that to a woman. As a man, you got to practice radical self-respect. You got to be good, whether that woman likes you or not, whether she's giving you her approval or not. We got to have the courage to be disliked. And ironically, when we have the courage to be disliked, more people will genuinely like us and have genuine desire for us when we have the courage to stand strong, to stand up for what we believe, and have the courage to be disliked if necessary. So if you're the guy that needs her approval, just know that does not work at all and is, if anything, is anti-seductive. Now again, this does not mean you can never do good things and do loving deeds, caring deeds, etc. That does not mean that. There's a lot of black and white in the manosphere now where people forget about nuance a lot of times. But you can do some good things. You can show some love and affection. But the problem is you just can't be too invested in having it be a certain outcome when you do those things. That's kind of like a covert contract where you'll do good things, but only with the expectation that you'll get some sort of reward, love, or approval on the other side. We got to give with the expectation of nothing in return. So avoid those covert contracts and do not be too invested in receiving her approval. So that was number 4. And then finally, number 5, and some of you are probably thinking this should have been number 1, but I can't say that being married and getting married today is a good idea for men in particular, but also for women. Because when you look at it, 50% of marriages end. And the more money you have as a guy, the bigger risk that becomes. You're basically betting half of your stuff that you're going to love someone forever. You're not going to grow in different directions. You're not just going to grow apart. And you can't know that for sure. You just don't know what life has in store. So to me, there's nothing that you just can't do as boyfriend, girlfriend that you would be able to do while married. While married, you'll have tax breaks. That's it. But in every other circumstance, you can have kids without getting married. You can live together without getting married. But the thing with living together is you can fall under common law if you live together long enough. But hey, you can do all those things. You just don't need to get married. And even if a guy doesn't make much money, even then still, you're still going to go through the headache of a divorce and at least risk that. A 50% chance. Statistically, I just can't see a way around that. There's just nothing I can say to say, yeah, you know what? It's worth that risk. Go do that. I can't endorse that for anybody right now, men or women. And there's going to be women that make more money than men, and they will kind of marry equivalently, or they're going to make a little more than their husbands. Hey, you wouldn't think that would be the way it is, especially when they talk about hypergamy in the manosphere, but it does happen more and more. And I think, on a side note about hypergamy here, I think women, depending on their age, it's going to be different for them at different times, right? So some women may be more open to cheating than others. Some women may be thinking, and looking for a better deal. But that's usually when they're much younger. And sometimes they'll do that for a while, and then they'll notice, uh-oh, a lot of time has gone by here. And then they might be floundering in their mid-30s. Uh-oh, I don't have a husband, I don't have kids, what should I do? But I think men and women both, they might find attractive what their partners don't have. I can see that happening too. But I think the 5 things I mentioned, that's more important than thinking about hypergamy at all at this point. And here's the other thing about it too. I would prefer, in my ideal relationship, a woman who's a little younger, and a woman who wants to forego the party phase of her life, where she hooks up with all sorts of guys, because she has character and she has principles, where she realizes her body is worth something and not everyone deserves to have it. And I say that applies to men too. I think that the men that I respect the most are men that just wouldn't sleep with anybody. They think that that's something valuable, it's something special, and not everyone deserves it. And I think for men and women both, I find that to be the case. Now, admittedly, sometimes I struggle with that, and I have more casual stuff than I would like. But like I said, the men I respect the most, they don't do that. And the movie The Godfather is a great example of this, really, where you just see Michael Corleone, Vito Corleone, Fredo, and Sonny. Now, Fredo was considered a womanizer. And in the scene where he's negotiating, where Michael Corleone's negotiating with Mo Green, Michael calls him out for slapping Fredo in public. And Mo Green said, hey, Fredo was banging cocktail waitresses 2 at a time. The players at the table couldn't get a drink. So Mo Green had to set him straight, which Michael Corleone didn't like very much. But the point is, Fredo was seen as weak for doing that. And then again, Sonny, Vito Corleone's son. Vito, at the end of a meeting with Sollozzo, he called him over and said, Sonny, what are you thinking? You're playing too much comedy with that young girl, a girl he was having an affair with, mind you. And he said, don't ever tell someone outside the family what you're thinking again. And again, it was considered weak of him to be doing that. Vito Corleone, he didn't have mistresses, as far as we know. Same with Michael Corleone. No mistresses for him either. So they had this thing where they knew not to do that. They knew there were more important things for a really high-value man to be thinking about, besides just hooking up with as many women as they can. And in that movie, you don't see this too often anymore, but it was looked down upon to be the womanizer. It was seen as weak. And the stronger characters, Vito Corleone and Michael Corleone, they were not like that. And even in Godfather 2, the senator, it was used against him that he would see ladies of the night, and they were able to exploit that weakness in him to get him on their side later. So, interesting stuff that you don't see too often anymore. So, to reiterate my list of 5 things, the only 5 things you really need to see and know about the Manosphere. 1, women will love differently than men. And watch out for genuine desire. You want the woman that's going to display genuine desire. Her actions will show it. She'll swim across oceans for a guy she has genuine desire for. I wouldn't settle for less. 2, do not believe in soulmates. There is no soulmate or the one. There are good ones. There are bad ones. And it doesn't serve us in any way to believe in a soulmate. But it does serve us to think, hey, I got to be the best version of myself. I got to take care of my side of the street. And when I'm the best version of myself, I'll be able to attract the best I can. It serves us much better to believe that. Number 3, a lot more women cheat than a lot of guys would be willing to admit. And it's not to say all women cheat, but for the naive guys out there, there are more women out there that will cheat than you would probably think. And so you got to know that. You got to know the character of the woman that you're with. Is she going to be the kind of woman that is going to be looking for a better deal? Is she the kind of woman that likes to party it up and whatever happens, happens? You got to watch out for that kind of thing. Number 4, any man that is too invested in a woman's approval, the woman will not be attracted to him. Nothing kills attraction faster than that needy and approval-seeking behavior. Do not be the guy that's needy and approval-seeking. Practice radical self-respect, stand on principles, have the courage to be disliked. And then finally, number 5, avoid marriage in this day and age. I just can't endorse marriage, something that has a 50% failure rate, and it only takes one person's vote to end the partnership. And then you could lose half of your stuff. And even if you don't make as much money as your wife, it's still going to be an unpleasant experience. So why put yourself through that? Just avoid marriage because you can't do anything as boyfriend and girlfriend that you couldn't do. Or excuse me, you can have kids, you can live together. There's nothing that marriage is sacred for, unless you're a very religious person. And if you're not a very religious person, then why bother getting married? Because you can have kids, you can live together, you can do whatever you want without being married. So that's my list of 5 things there. The only 5 things I think you really need to know about the Manosphere. And they have served my life. And I know that, hey, you can continue to watch the content there if you want, but just know a lot of times, if you've seen one video, you've seen them all. So rather than just dull yourself with the same thing over and over again, learn from it, and then move forward with your life. Don't get caught up in resentments. Don't get caught up in anything. And even if you want to just go your own way, do something about it. Don't just whine. Like, have some actions in regards to it. I say some of them make some good points, but make sure you're doing something. That's what I would say in that case. So I did say I was going to mention the meaning, the expression, or the origins of the expression beating around the bush. And it was actually pretty interesting. I thought it might be a dirty thing, but it's really not. So what it was in the medieval times, I think around the 14th, 15th century, hunters would hire men to go out into the woods and with sticks beat around a bush to flush out game so that the hunters could hunt the game that was flushed out. So they would hire these guys to beat around the bush with a stick, and all the game that was taking shelter around the bush or under the bush would come out, and it would give the hunters a shot to kill them. So I was like, hey, that's pretty interesting. I didn't realize that's what it was. Like I said, I thought it might be a dirty meaning, but it had nothing to do with that at all. And like I said, I'm going to do one of those at the beginning of every one of these episodes. So if you got this far, please remember to hit the notification bell and subscribe if you like this kind of content. Share this video with others that you think might benefit. Comment below what you thought about the video. And again, thank you very much for watching, and any kind of comments would be welcome. Liking always helps the video too. If you did like it, helps in the algorithm here as well. Oh, and one more final note. YouTube doesn't like me talking about narcissism for some reason, and I have a whole new channel about it, Black Sheep's Time to Shine. I don't know what I'm going to do with that if YouTube doesn't like me talking about it, so I might just make more videos on this channel instead. But that's yet to be determined. To be determined, I'll say. So with that, thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.